The news of Kethros spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within days, everything changed. 12 species formally withdrew from the Galaxy Council. They sent desperate messages to Earth, begging for peace treaties, promising friendship, swearing they had nothing to do with the colony attacks. Their ambassadors arrived at human space stations with gifts and apologies. Hoping to save themselves from the storm that was coming, Ambassador Hana Yoon received them one by one in a cold gray room. She sat behind a metal desk, her face showing nothing. She let them talk. She let them make their offers. And then she asked them the same question. Where were you when our children burned? Most of them had no answer. They looked at their hands or at the floor. They mumbled about politics and difficult situations and impossible choices. You had a choice, Hannah said to each of them. You could have spoken up. You could have voted against the attack. You could have warned us. You did nothing. And now you want us to forgive you because you're afraid. Some treaties were signed anyway. Humanity needed allies and fear was a powerful motivator. But the terms were harsh, and the new allies understood that trust would take years to rebuild. If it could be rebuilt at all while Hannah dealt with diplomats? Lieutenant Mena Park hunted bigger prey. Counselor Thress had run to Vel territory, hiding on his home planet behind layers of security and loyal guards. He thought he was safe. He thought no human could reach him there. He was wrong. Mena led a team of 12 agents, the best humanity had trained. They crossed into Vel space using stolen ship codes, wearing stolen uniforms, carrying weapons that could cut through any armor. It took them 3 weeks to reach Thress's compound. It took them 3 hours to get inside. They found him in his bedroom, surrounded by guards. The guards died quickly and quietly. Thress tried to run, but Mina was faster. She caught him by the collar and threw him to the ground. Please, he begged, his silver scales pale with fear. I was following orders. The council made me do it. You smiled when you did it, Mina replied coldly. I watched the recordings. When Ambassador Yoon showed pictures of dead children, you smiled. I'll give you anything, money, information, power. Mina leaned close to his face. You have nothing we want, except justice. They dragged him out of his palace in chains. They took him to a waiting ship. They brought him to Earth, where the entire world was waiting, while Thress faced his fate. Another visitor approached human space. Commander Drall arrived at the border in a small shuttle, broadcasting on every frequency. I come under a flag of truce. I wish to speak with Admiral Tae-woo. The human ships surrounded him but did not fire. They escorted him to a station in orbit around Mars, where the Admiral waited. Drall had changed since Kethros. His proud posture was gone. His eyes held shadows that had not been there before. He walked into the meeting room slowly, like a man carrying a heavy weight. Why are you here? Tae-woo asked. Because I saw what you did at Kethros, Drall replied. You could have killed my crew. 30,000 soldiers helpless in disabled ships. You could have slaughtered them all. Instead, you let them live. They were not guilty of the colony attacks. No, they weren't. Drall sat down heavily. I have served the council for 200 years. I believed in their justice, their order, their wisdom. He laughed bitterly. I was a fool. They have no justice. They have only power, and they use it to crush anyone who threatens them. What do you want, Commander? Drall reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data crystal. The Council's military codes, fleet positions, communication frequencies. Everything you need to destroy them. Tae-woo did not touch the crystal. And what do you want in return? Spare the innocent, Drall said. Punish those responsible. But do not burn worlds full of civilians who had nothing to do with this. Do not become what the Council was. For a long moment, the Admiral was silent. Then he reached out and took the crystal. You have my word. The trial of Counselor Thress was broadcast across the galaxy. Every species watched as the architect of the colony attack stood in a human courtroom, facing human justice. Dr. Su-Kang testified first. She spoke about the technical details of the attacks, How the ships had been equipped with weapons designed to maximize civilian casualties. She showed recordings of the destruction, cities burning, hospitals collapsing, children running through streets filled with smoke. Then came the names. For 11 days, a voice read the names of the dead. 2.3 million names, one after another, hour after hour. Thress was forced to sit and listen to every single one. He could not leave. He could not sleep. He could only listen as the weight of his crimes pressed down upon him. By the end, he was broken. His scales had turned gray. His eyes were empty. When the judges asked if he had anything to say, he only whispered, "I didn't know there were so many." "Did you think they weren't real?" the chief judge asked. "Did you think they were just numbers?" Thress had no answer. He was found guilty of crimes against humanity. His sentence was life imprisonment on an asteroid prison at the edge of known space. Every day, for the rest of his life, he would hear recordings of the victims' names. He would never know silence again. With Thress convicted, Admiral Taewoo turned his attention to the council itself. Using the codes Dral had provided, human ships appeared throughout council space. They did not attack colonies or civilian stations. They targeted military bases, communication hubs, supply lines. Each strike was surgical and precise. Each target was chosen to cripple the Council's ability to fight. Without harming innocent populations, the Council's remaining fleet tried to respond, but Project Silence made them helpless. Every time they gathered ships for a counterattack, the humans appeared and disabled them. The war was not a war. It was a lesson. Finally, Admiral Taewoo sent his ultimatum. The Galaxy Council will dissolve immediately. All officials who voted for the colony attacks will surrender themselves for trial. A new governing body will be established, one where every species has an equal voice. These terms are not negotiable. You have 1 week to comply. High Arbiter Volan received the message in his private chambers. He had not slept in days. His 6 eyes were bloodshot and tired. His hands shook constantly now. Scholar Orin appeared at his door, ancient and knowing. "I warned you," the old being said. "I warned you not to underestimate them. What do I do?" Volan asked, his voice cracking. "You accept. You surrender? You pray that their mercy extends to you?" Orin stepped closer. "Humans do not forget. They do not forgive easily. But they are capable of building something new. Something better. Your only hope is to help them build it." Volan stared at the ultimatum on his screen. For 200 years he had ruled the galaxy. He had believed himself untouchable, immortal, all-powerful. Now he understood the truth. Power was an illusion. The Council had held power only because no one challenged them. The moment someone pushed back, that power crumbled like sand. His hand trembled as he reached for the communication console. "I accept," he whispered to the empty room. "I accept." The galaxy held its breath. A new era was about to begin. Kethros Station was the largest military shipyard in the known galaxy. It floated in orbit around a dying star, a massive structure of metal and light that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. 300 warships guarded it at all times. 50,000 workers lived inside its walls. Every day it produced enough weapons to arm an entire fleet. The Council believed it was untouchable. They were wrong. Station Commander Voss was drinking his morning tea when the alarm started screaming. He was a fat creature with purple skin and tiny eyes, and he had held this position for 30 years without a single incident. He assumed it was a drill. "What is happening?" he asked, annoyed. His assistant looked at the screens with wide, terrified eyes. "Ships, Commander, human ships. They just appeared." "Appeared? From where? I don't know." "They weren't there, and then they were. 200 of them." Voss dropped his cup. Tea spilled across his desk. "That's impossible. Our sensors would have detected them hours ago." But the sensors had detected nothing. The human fleet had used a new form of faster-than-light travel, something the galaxy had never seen before. They had crossed light years in seconds, arriving without warning, like ghosts stepping out of the darkness. Captain Jin Seok stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching Kethros Station grow larger on his screens. Around him, his crew worked in perfect silence. They had trained for this moment for months. Every person knew their job. Every person was ready. All ships in position, his first officer reported. Contact Dr. Kong, Jin Seok said. Tell her to activate Project Silence. On Mars, Dr. Su Kang sat in her control room, surrounded by her team. When the message came, she took a deep breath and pressed a single button. Across the space around Kethro Station, something invisible spread outward like ripples in water. It moved faster than light, touching every Council ship in the system. And wherever it touched, systems began to fail on the bridge of the Council. Flagship Commander Dral watched his screens go dark one by one. First the weapons, then the engines, then the shields. Around him, officers shouted in confusion and fear, "What is happening?" He demanded. No one could answer. The ship was dying around them, and they didn't know why. Across the system, 300 warships went silent. Their lights flickered and died. Their weapons pointed uselessly at nothing. Their engines drifted cold and dead. In the space of 30 seconds, the most powerful military force in the sector became nothing more than floating metal. On the eternal dawn, Jin Seok allowed himself a small smile. Project Silence is successful. All enemy ships are disabled. Should we destroy them, Captain? His weapons officer asked. Jin Seok shook his head. No, open a channel to the station. The communication screen flickered to life, showing Station Commander Voss's terrified face. This is Captain Jin Seok of the Earth Fleet, Jin Seok said calmly. We have disabled your defense force. We could destroy every ship in this system. We could kill everyone on that station. But we are not like you. Voss's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. You have 4 hours to evacuate all civilians from Kethro Station. Take your wounded. Take your families. We will not fire on evacuation ships. But when the 4 hours are over, we will destroy the station. Do you understand? You can't do this, Voss stammered. The Council ordered the deaths of 2.3 million of our people. The Council laughed when we asked for justice. The Council planned to invade our home and enslave our species. Jin Seok's voice grew harder. The Council should have thought about consequences before they made an enemy of humanity. 4 hours, Commander. I suggest you start evacuating. The channel went dead. For the next 4 hours, chaos filled Kethro Station. Evacuation ships launched in waves, carrying workers and families away from the doomed structure. Some cried. Some screamed. All of them looked back at the human fleet with fear in their eyes. Not a single human ship fired on them. Not a single evacuation vessel was harmed. The humans simply waited, silent and patient, while their enemies fled. On the Council flagship, Commander Dral sat in the darkness of his dead ship. Emergency lights cast red shadows across his face. He had spent his entire life believing in the Council's power, believing that no species could challenge them. Now he watched evacuation ships stream past his window, and he understood how wrong he had been. Who are these humans? He whispered to himself. A young officer nearby answered without thinking. They are what we made them, Commander. We pushed them into a corner. We threatened their children, and now they are pushing back. Dral closed his eyes. The officer was right. The Council had created this enemy, and now they would pay for it. When the 4 hours ended, Captain Jin Seok gave the order. The human fleet opened fire. Beams of light brighter than stars cut through Kethro Station, slicing it into pieces. Explosions bloomed in the darkness, silent and beautiful and terrible. Metal twisted and melted. Structures collapsed. In less than 10 minutes, the largest shipyard in the galaxy was reduced to glowing debris. Then, as quietly as they had arrived, the human ships turned and vanished. They left behind 300 disabled warships floating helplessly in space. Every crew member was alive. Every ship was intact except for its systems. It would take weeks for rescue ships to arrive, weeks for the crews to be saved. Weeks of humiliation, drifting in the dark, knowing that the humans could have killed them all and chose not to. On the Council Station, High Arbiter Volan received the report in his private chambers. His hands shook as he read the details. Kethro Station destroyed. 300 ships disabled. 0 human casualties. The entire attack had lasted less than 5 hours. He had been so certain that the humans were weak, so certain that they would fail. Now he understood the truth. The humans had never been weak. They had simply been waiting. Counselor Thress had already fled the station. His personal ship had departed an hour ago, heading for Velspace. He knew what was coming. He knew that someone would have to pay for the colony attacks. And he had no intention of being that someone. But Thress did not understand humans. He did not understand that they remembered everything. He did not understand that running only made them more determined to find you. Scholar Oren watched the news reports from his quiet library. Ships from dozens of species were already racing toward human space, desperate to negotiate peace. The balance of power had shifted in a single day. He picked up his pen and began to write. In 10,000 years of recorded history, no species has ever done what the humans did at Kethros. They had the power to commit genocide. Instead, they chose mercy. They evacuated their enemies before destroying their target. They disabled ships instead of destroying them. They showed the galaxy that they were not monsters. And somehow, that was more terrifying than any massacre could have been. He paused, thinking, because a monster can be hated. A monster can be fought without guilt. But how do you fight an enemy? Who is better than you? How do you hate someone who shows mercy when you showed none? He wrote the final sentence slowly, carefully. The galaxy is about to learn a hard lesson. And I fear it will be a lesson written in fire. Outside his window, the stars continued to burn. And somewhere in the darkness, humanity waited for the Council's response. They would not have to wait long. 6 months passed. In that time, not a single signal came from human space. No trade ships. No communications. No diplomatic messages. The border stations that once welcomed visitors from across the galaxy now sat dark and empty. Ships that crossed into human territory simply vanished. No distress calls. No wreckage, nothing. The galaxy had never known such silence. High Arbiter Volan stood before the council, his 6 eyes scanning the nervous faces of the representatives. There is nothing to fear, he announced. The humans are sulking like children. Within a year, their economy will collapse. They will come begging for trade agreements. We will welcome them back, of course, with new conditions. Some counselors nodded. Others looked less certain. Commander Drall, the military leader of the council fleet, rose from his seat. He was a warrior from the Kreth people, covered in thick armor plates and battle scars. High Arbiter, we have lost 47 patrol ships near the human border. No survivors. No signals. I request permission to send a full fleet to investigate. Denied, Volan said firmly. We will not provoke the humans. They are trying to make us afraid. We will not give them the satisfaction. Drall sat back down, but his eyes were troubled. He had fought many enemies in his long life. He knew the difference between a wounded animal and a predator waiting to strike. The humans were not sulking. They were preparing. Deep inside human space on the red surface of Mars, something was being built. Dr. Su Kong walked through the underground facility, checking screens and adjusting instruments. She was a thin woman with gray hair and glasses that sat crooked on her nose. She looked like a grandmother. In reality, she was the most dangerous scientist humanity had ever produced. Project Silence was her creation. For decades, she had studied alien technology, looking for weaknesses. She had found many. Every species in the galaxy used the same basic systems for their ships. The same power cores. The same communication arrays. The same weapon frequencies. They had shared technology for so long that they had all become the same. Humanity was different. Humanity had been isolated. Humanity had built something new. How long until it's ready? Admiral Taewoo asked, standing beside her. 3 more months, Su Kong replied. When we activate it, we can disable every ship within 10 light years. Their weapons will go offline. Their engines will die. Their life support will fail unless they have backup systems. Do they have backup systems? Su Kong smiled. No, they never needed them. They trusted their technology completely. That was their mistake. In another part of the facility, Captain Jin Seok supervised the construction of the new fleet. 200 warships, each one built with technology the galaxy had never seen. Faster engines, stronger shields, weapons that could cut through anything. Jin Seok was a quiet man. He did not speak much or smile often. But he was the finest captain in Earth's history, and his crew would follow him into the heart of a sun if he asked. He walked among the ships, touching their hulls, feeling the cold metal under his fingers. "Soon," he whispered. "Soon we will show them what we can do." On Earth, Lieutenant Mina Park worked day and night in her intelligence center. She had agents across the galaxy now, hidden among alien populations, gathering information. Most of it was useless gossip. But sometimes she found gold. Tonight, she found something that made her stop breathing. She called Admiral Tae-woo immediately. "Admiral," she said, her voice tight. "The Council has approved Phase 2. What is Phase 2? Full invasion. They plan to attack Earth next year. 50,000 ships. They want to destroy our military, occupy our planets, and turn humanity into a servant species." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Admiral?" Mina asked. "I heard you." His voice was calm. "Too calm. Thank you, Lieutenant. Continue monitoring. What are we going to do?" "We are going to move our timeline up. If they want war, we will give them war. But it will not be the war they expect." He ended the call. The next morning, Tae-woo met with his command staff. Jin Seok was there. Su Kang was there. Hana Yoon, now serving as a civilian advisor, sat in the corner with her arms crossed. They were all tired. They were all angry. And they were all ready. "The Council plans to invade next year," Tae-woo announced. "We will not wait for them. In 3 months, when Project Silence is complete, we will strike first." "Where?" Jin Seok asked. "Kethro's station. Their largest military shipyard. If we destroy it, we cripple their ability to build new ships. It will take them a decade to recover. And if we fail?" Tae-woo's eyes were hard. "We will not fail. We have one chance. One strike. It must be perfect." The meeting continued for hours. Plans were made. Strategies were discussed. By the time it ended, everyone knew their role. Everyone understood what was at stake. As they filed out of the room, Hana Yoon stopped beside the Admiral. "They will hate us," she said quietly. "When this is over, the galaxy will call us monsters." "Let them," Tae-woo replied. "I would rather be a living monster than a dead innocent." Hana nodded slowly. There was nothing else to say. 2 weeks before the attack, a single human probe drifted across the border into Council space. It was small and unarmed. It posed no threat to anyone. But when it reached the first alien outpost, it began to broadcast. The message played on every frequency in every known language. It echoed through space stations and colony worlds, through military bases and civilian ships. Every being in the galaxy heard it. The message was simple. Just 3 words: you were warned. On the Council station, High Arbiter Volan watched the broadcast with growing unease. For the first time in 200 years, he felt doubt creeping into his heart. Something was wrong. Something was coming, but it was too late to stop it now. In the darkness of space, the human fleet began to move. 200 ships, silent as shadows, carrying the fury of a betrayed species. At their head flew the Eternal Dawn, with Captain Jin Seok at the helm. He looked at the stars ahead and thought of the dead. The 2.3 million souls who had burned while the galaxy laughed. He would not bring them back. Nothing could do that. But he could make sure their deaths meant something. "All ships," he said into his communicator, "begin final approach. Today, we remind the galaxy why they should never have made us their enemy." The fleet accelerated into the void. The silence was about to end. The great hall of the Galaxy Council was filled with light from 1,000 stars. Representatives from 800 species sat in their floating chairs, arranged in a massive circle. At the center stood Ambassador Hana Yoon, a small human woman with tired eyes and steady hands. She had not slept in 3 days. I bring evidence, she said, her voice echoing through the hall. 3 human colony worlds were attacked. Nova Prime, Garden Falls, Nubasan. 2.3 million of our people are dead, women, children, families, burned alive while they slept. She pressed a button on her tablet. Holographic images appeared above her head. Burning cities. Ships with Vel markings firing on civilian buildings. Bodies floating in space. The Vel Dominion did this, Hannah continued. We have their ship signatures. We have their communication codes. We have survivors who saw their faces. High Arbiter Volan, a massive creature with gray skin and 6 eyes, leaned forward in his chair. He had ruled the council for 200 years. In all that time, he had never taken humans seriously. They were a young species, weak, unimportant. Ambassador Yoon, he said slowly, these images prove nothing. Ship signatures can be faked. Communication codes can be stolen. Your survivors may be confused. Hannah felt her heart grow cold. Confused? They watched their children die. Unfortunate, Volan replied. But not evidence. Councillor Thress of the Vel Dominion stood from his seat. He was tall and thin, with silver scales that shimmered under the lights. A smile played on his lips. The Vel Dominion denies all involvement. Perhaps the humans attacked themselves for sympathy. Several counselors laughed. Hannah gripped her tablet so hard her knuckles turned white. I demand an investigation. I demand justice. Our treaty with this council guarantees protection. The council will vote, Volan announced. He sounded bored. All those in favor of investigating the alleged attacks on human colonies. One light turned green. Earth's vote. All those against? 847 lights turned red. Volan spread his massive hands. The motion fails. This matter is closed. Hannah stood alone in that sea of red lights. She had spent her entire life believing in diplomacy, believing that words could solve problems, believing that fairness existed somewhere in this vast galaxy. Now she understood the truth. There was no fairness. There was only power. And humanity had none. She bowed her head and walked out of the chamber. 3 days later, Lieutenant Mina Park sat in a dark room on Earth surrounded by screens. She was young, barely 30, but she was the best intelligence officer humanity had ever produced. For weeks, she had been trying to break into the Council's secret communications. Tonight, she finally succeeded. What she found made her blood run cold. The attacks on the colonies were not random. They were not the work of a rogue faction. They were ordered by the Council itself. A secret vote, hidden from all records, had authorized the Vel Dominion to reduce human expansion through targeted population control. They had voted to kill human civilians. And they had hidden it behind closed doors. Mina copied every file, every message, every name of every counselor who had voted yes. Then she contacted Admiral Tae-woo. The admiral was an old man with white hair and a face carved from stone. He had served Earth's fleet for 50 years. He had fought pirates, explored unknown space, and shaken hands with alien leaders. But when he read Mina's report, his hands began to shake. They killed our people, he said quietly. And then they laughed. Yes, sir, Mina replied. Does Ambassador Yoon know? Not yet. Bring her to me. When Hannah arrived at the Admiral's office, she looked like a ghost. The Council's rejection had broken something inside her. But when Tae-woo showed her the secret files, something new appeared in her eyes. Not sadness, not despair, rage. All those years, she whispered. All those years I stood before them, begging for scraps of respect. And the whole time they were planning to destroy us. What do you want to do? Tae-woo asked. Hannah looked at him. Her voice was steady now. Diplomacy is dead. They killed it. Do what you must, Admiral. Tae-woo nodded slowly. He had hoped, in some small part of his heart, that she would find another way. But there was no other way. There never had been. The next day, Admiral Tae-woo stood before the United Earth Assembly. Every human in the solar system watched his broadcast. Every alien embassy received the transmission. For 120 years, he began, Humanity has been a faithful member of the Galaxy Council. We followed their rules. We paid their taxes. We sent our young people to die in their wars. And in return they gave us one vote among thousands. They called us children. They called us weak. They smiled at our faces and plotted our destruction behind our backs. He paused. The silence was absolute. 3 months ago, the Council secretly authorized an attack on our colonies. 2.3 million humans died. When we brought evidence of this crime, they laughed at us. They called our dead children an inconvenience. His voice grew harder. Today, humanity withdraws from the Galaxy Council. All alien embassies will leave Earth space within 72 hours. All treaties are void. All agreements are cancelled. He leaned forward, and his eyes seemed to burn through the screen. We will remember what you did. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched in shock. On the council station, High Arbiter Volan dismissed the broadcast with a wave of his hand. Let them sulk, he said. They will come crawling back. But in a quiet library on an ancient world, Scholar Orin closed his book and stared into the darkness. He was older than most civilizations. He had seen empires rise and fall like waves upon a shore. And he knew, with terrible certainty, what was coming. Fools, he whispered. You have awakened something you cannot understand. And when it comes for you, there will be no mercy. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and silent. And somewhere in the darkness, humanity began to prepare. 1 year had passed since the fall of the Galaxy Council. The great hall where Hannah Yoon had once begged for justice now sat empty and dark, a monument to a system that no longer existed. In its place, a new structure rose on neutral ground. Built by hundreds of species working together for the first time in history, they called it the Galactic Assembly. Admiral Tae-woo stood at the podium during the opening ceremony, looking out at representatives from every corner of the galaxy. Some had been enemies a year ago. Some had tried to destroy humanity. Now they sat together, nervous and uncertain, waiting to see what kind of future the humans would create. The old council ruled through fear, Tae-woo said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. It gave power to the strong and ignored the weak. It made decisions in secret and punished anyone who questioned them. That system is gone now. It will never return, he paused, letting the words settle. The Galactic Assembly will be different. Every species will have an equal voice. Decisions will require agreement, not just majority votes. No one will be able to hide attacks on civilians behind closed doors. And if any member threatens another, they will face the consequences together, not alone. A murmur ran through the crowd. Some species had expected humanity to take control, to become the new masters of the galaxy. They were surprised to hear talk of equality. Humanity does not want to rule you, Tae-woo continued. We want what we always wanted, peace, fairness, the chance to live without fear. We fought because you gave us no other choice. Now we have a chance to build something better. I hope you will take it. He stepped down from the podium. The applause started slowly, then grew until it filled the entire chamber. In the months that followed, the assembly took shape. Old enemies learned to sit at the same table. Old grudges slowly healed. It was not easy. There were arguments and disagreements and moments when it seemed like everything would fall apart. But it held together, piece by piece, day by day. Those responsible for the colony attacks faced justice. Some were imprisoned. Some were executed for their crimes. High Arbiter Volan was stripped of all power and exiled to a distant world, where he would spend his remaining years in quiet isolation. He accepted his fate without protest. He had no strength left to fight. Counselor Thress remained in his asteroid prison, listening to the names of the dead every hour of every day. Reports said he had stopped speaking entirely. His mind had retreated somewhere far away, unable to bear the weight of what he had done. Some called it mercy. Others called it justice. Perhaps it was both. On the ruins of the 3 destroyed colonies, humanity built a memorial. It was visible from space, a great ring of light surrounding each dead world. Ambassador Hannah Yoon spoke at the dedication ceremony, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. "We did not want war," she said. "We did not seek vengeance. We sought only to be treated as equals, to have our lives valued as much as anyone else's. We were denied that basic dignity, and millions of our people paid the price." She looked up at the stars. "This memorial is not about hatred. It is about memory. We will never forget what happened here. We will never forget the faces of our children, the voices of our families, the dreams that were stolen from us. But we will not let that memory poison our future. We will carry it with us, and we will use it to build a galaxy where nothing like this ever happens again." The ceremony ended in silence. Ships from dozens of species had come to pay their respects. Many of them had been enemies. Now they stood together, united in grief for something that should never have happened. 5 years later, Admiral Jin Seok brought his daughter to visit the memorial. She was 10 years old, born after the war, too young to remember the fear and anger that had consumed her father's generation. She looked at the ring of light with wide, curious eyes. "Why did they fight?" she asked. Jin Seok knelt beside her, looking at the memorial. "Because no one else would fight for us. The galaxy told us we were small and weak and unimportant. When people hurt us, no one helped. So we learned to fight for ourselves. Were you scared?" "Yes, very scared. But I was more scared of what would happen if we did nothing." His daughter thought about this for a moment. "Are they still scared of us? The other species?" "Some of them. But fear is not what we want. We want respect. We want friendship. Those things take time to build. How do you build them?" Jin Seok smiled and took her hand. "By keeping our promises. By treating others the way we want to be treated. By showing them that we are not their enemies, even if we once were." On a distant world, scholar Oren finished his history of humanity's rise. He had spent 5 years writing it, gathering accounts from every corner of the galaxy, trying to understand how a young species had changed everything so quickly. He called the final chapter, "Those Who Would Not Kneel." He wrote about the betrayal, the silence, the strike at Kethros. He wrote about the mercy shown to defeated enemies, the justice demanded for the guilty, the memorial built for the dead. He wrote about the new assembly and the hope it represented, but his final words were about something else entirely. In 10,000 years of recorded history, no species has risen so fast or burned so bright as humanity. They were dismissed as children, betrayed as friends, and nearly destroyed as enemies. They responded not with hatred, but with terrible, righteous resolve. They won their war without becoming the monsters their enemies were. And in victory they chose to build rather than to dominate. He paused, his pen hovering over the page. The galaxy will never make the mistake of underestimating them again. But more importantly, the galaxy may finally learn what humanity tried to teach from the beginning. That true strength is not about power or control. It is about standing up for what is right, even when you stand alone. He wrote the final sentence slowly, carefully, knowing it would be read by billions across the stars. They came asking only for a seat at the table. We refused them, and they built their own. Now we sit at their table, grateful to be welcomed at all. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. And humanity earned it in fire. Admiral Taewoo was old now, his hair white, his steps slow. He stood at the window of his office on Earth, watching ships from 100 worlds arrive in peace. The war seemed like another lifetime. The anger and fear had faded, replaced by something quieter. Something he almost didn't recognize. Hope. Lieutenant Mina Park, now his successor, entered the room. She was middle-aged now, but her eyes were still sharp, still watching everything. "The Assembly approved the new trade agreement," she reported. "Every species signed. Even the Vel." Taewoo nodded slowly. "Good, that's good. Do you think they've learned?" Maina asked, standing beside him at the window. "The other species. Do you think they understand now?" The old admiral was silent for a long moment, watching the ships drift across the sky. "They have learned to fear us," he finally said. "But fear fades. Fear becomes resentment. Resentment becomes hatred. If we want peace to last, we need something stronger than fear. What's that? He turned to face her, and for the first time in years he smiled. Respect. Mina looked out at the galaxy beyond the window. Somewhere out there, species that had once tried to destroy humanity were now working beside them, building something new together. It wasn't perfect. It might never be perfect. But it was better than what came before. Do you think we can teach them that? She asked quietly. Taewoo put a hand on her shoulder. We already have. Every day we keep our promises. Every day we treat them fairly. Every day we prove that we are worthy of trust. That's how you build respect, slowly, patiently, one day at a time. He looked back at the stars. We have time now. Time to show them who we really are. Not conquerors. Not monsters. Just people who refuse to be broken. The sun set over Earth, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. Ships continued to arrive from across the galaxy, carrying in traders and diplomats, scientists and artists, beings of every shape and size coming to see the homeworld of the species that had changed everything. And in the growing darkness, the stars began to appear one by one, like promises waiting to be kept. Humanity had found its place among them. Not through conquest. Not through fear, but through something far more powerful, through respect. 1 year had passed since the fall of the Galaxy Council. The great hall where Hannah Yoon had once begged for justice now sat empty and dark, a monument to a system that no longer existed. In its place, a new structure rose on neutral ground. Built by hundreds of species working together for the first time in history, they called it the Galactic Assembly. Admiral Taewoo stood at the podium during the opening ceremony, looking out at representatives from every corner of the galaxy. Some had been enemies a year ago. Some had tried to destroy humanity. Now they sat together, nervous and uncertain, waiting to see what kind of future the humans would create. The old council ruled through fear, Taewoo said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. It gave power to the strong and ignored the weak. It made decisions in secret and punished anyone who questioned them. That system is gone now. It will never return. He paused, letting the words settle. The Galactic Assembly will be different. Every species will have an equal voice. Decisions will require agreement, not just majority votes. No one will be able to hide attacks on civilians behind sea.